Welcome to the Commentary Magazine Daily podcast. This is one of our special summer podcasts, undated because I don't know when it's going to run, that we are recording to give ourselves a break and to provide you with non-news insights from the commentary family. That family being, of course, executive editor Abe Greenwald. Hi, Abe.
Hi, John.
Senior editor Seth Mandel. Hi, Seth.
Hi, John.
Social commentary columnist Christine Rosen. Hi, Christine.
Hi, John.
And Washington commentary columnist Matthew Continetti. Hi, Matt.
Hi, John.
It felt like the Waltons just then because you introduced us as a family.
Yeah. Good night, Abe boy.
Right.
Yeah,
John.
Four more, and you can make the Hollywood Squares board.
Yeah, the Hollywood Squares board is even. Well, we sort of look like you don't see us, but as we set up, we look like the Hollywood Squares board often, except that there are 5 of us today, and Hollywood Square board is of course 9, and none of us is Paul Lind, unfortunately. But okay, so today we wanted to make some recommendations as we are approaching the end of summer, and some of us have, meaning me, have a child going off to college for the first time. I mean, I have an older daughter who is going to be a senior in college, but I have my younger daughter who is going off to her freshman year in college. And we had this idea that maybe we would want to make recommendations to people for now or for the future or whatever on the one book that we think maybe you should give to your kid on the way to college to read in conjunction with the work that your kid will be doing in college. Or maybe if you hear this before they have to go off, the book that maybe they could read in the week while you're packing and having enormous fights over what to put in the bags and what not to put in the bags and what to order from Target and things like that to put in the dorm room. So the one book that you as a 17, 18, you think a 17, 18-year-old should read that they might not have read. And I'm going to go with Christine first because she really wanted to do this and has herself had 2 kids go off to college last year for the first time.
So I'm going to pick, first of all, because it's a college student and they don't have a lot of time to devote to reading, a shorter book. But Czesław Miłosz, The Captive Mind, was my choice because I feel like when you go off to college, you get a lot of new information, a lot of new experiences, but not always a lot of wisdom going in. And what this book, when I first read it, I was already out of college, but it struck me as being almost a great psychology textbook, a textbook about human nature. It shows you so many facets of the human personality in a way that's quite accessible for, I think, a younger, impressionable mind. And it also reminds you that the choices that people make in their lives at every stage have moral resonance. And so I would recommend this, and it's not done in a heavy-handed way. I think it's probably, I hope it's still assigned in some classes at the college level, but it's something they can read in a week and hopefully mull over some of its important lessons.
Okay. Seth, what do you have for that young, impressionable mind?
So I surprised myself with this, but with the specific question, which is a great question, by the way, of a book for somebody going away to college to read, I actually settled on The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen because it is a sort of quintessential modern novel of era of change, of going from the end of something big and stable, even if you didn't, even if it wasn't always great. I mean, this is like post-Cold War, the end of the 20th century, is what happens with where the novel is based in, and nobody really knows what to do in the sort of new world that's emerging. There's tech, and the patriarch of the family was an old railroad engineer or whatever, and that stuff is all gone. And but it's just a book about standing at the precipice along with everybody else around you, and nobody really knowing exactly what to do now, but also understanding that this is now the moment of opportunity. that like people say you could literally do anything, which is how the late 90s felt, but also paralyzed by indecision or whatever. So I think thinking about moments of big change and going along with all the people around you also experiencing it, I went with the corrections.
Okay. Abe?
So I chose a book that I read after college, and I wish I had read it before college. It's very big, very, very, very big book. Before I say the book, I'll explain my reasons why. When I went to
It's the Magic Mountain.
when I went to school, I would take all these courses, but I had a very hard time integrating one piece of information with another, putting together a sort of comprehensive intellectual picture in my head of what this all sort of added up to. This applies to, no matter what your interest, what your major is in college, whether it has to do with literature or history or science or anything, sort of putting together ages and movements and sort of placing it in the proper historical context. So, and I sort of left college still a bit confused about all that. And I read J.M. Roberts' New History of the World. Don't get any later than the 4th edition, which means you have to get an old one, which is why when I say it's big, it's a giant doorstopper that I'm showing here.
Showing
4th edition
to the YouTube viewers. Yes.
Because after the 4th edition, all the PC editors got a hold of it and started doing weird things with it. But it is gripping. It begins with prehistory and goes right up through to the end of the 20th century, and it explains the movements of nations, of peoples, of intellectual movements, of science and technology, and you get a complete perspective change. You sort of have some working knowledge of what came before, and it was an amazing experience for me.
So that's J.M. Roberts' History of the World. Matt?
My choice is somewhat similar to Abe's in that it, I think, provides a great backing for intellectual exploration and cultural literacy, which I'm obsessed with. And that is a book by the critic Clive James called Cultural Amnesia, Necessary Memories from History and the Arts. This is a book that came out, I think the hardcover came out in 2007. Yeah. But it's still in print, in paperback. And it is a basically collection of biographical portraits of significant cultural figures, some historical, some scientific, many cultural, literary, music, visual arts, along with commentary by Clive James, who's a very good Australian-born, then lived in England most of his life, literary critic. And it's just a lot of fun to read. You're going to learn a lot, but you're also going to have a wide breadth of knowledge about all of the different movements that inform our, postmodern apocalyptic landscape today.
One of the wittiest writers who ever lived, Clive James, wrote a series of picturesque poems. Felicity Fark in The Land of the Media, Peregrine. Anyway, these sort of tour d'horizon of like London comic portraits of London and world culture and society that are like
he's just a great writer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He was a genuinely
my
great
favorite
writer.
poem of his is The Book of My Enemy.
Yes, The Book of My Enemy has been remaindered.
Yes.
One of the greatest.
I love that poem.
So I was thinking about what Christine said about short books, and 3 short books came to mind. One of them, I think, actually interestingly connected to Clive James, whose last book was an exegesis of the work of Philip Larkin, the British poet. And Christine and I were having a conversation over text about some things, and somehow Larkin came up. And when I was 15, uh, my dad brought home this little book of poetry. We didn't like. It's not like books of poetry popped up on our coffee table very frequently. This was sort of 1975, something like that, called High Windows. I'd never heard of Philip Larkin. It was a book of poems by Philip Larkin, who began publishing novels and poetry just at the end, at the beginning, at the period at the end of the Second World War, and easily the greatest English language poet of the second half of the 20th century. I don't even think that's sort of in dispute kind of by this point, though many people have difficulty with his politics and other things. But High Windows was the book that led me to believe that poetry was a thing of glory. It's 24 poems. They are short. They are pithy. And they do what Larkin does at his most extraordinary, which is that they often begin in a kind of crabbed, small irritation with the condition of contemporary life, in which he's basically complaining about something that is an annoyance or worse to him about how we live. And by the end, he finds in these moments of irritation some doorway into the metaphysical. I don't know how else to describe it. They begin grounded on earth, and then they soar into a kind of transcendent greatness about what it means to be alive. Often tragic, often incredibly sad, and yet totally human. And so that, for somebody who might be beginning at college of a literary bent, if you haven't read Philip Larkin and you don't want to get the collected this one book changed my life as a rising near to undergraduate, and I think it could have that effect on almost anybody. But there's one other short book that I was thinking for people who are of a political bent that I don't think many people read anymore, that is so remarkable and extraordinary that it's worth citing, and though it is very low down and hilarious and cheap and weird. And it's called Plunkett of Tammany Hall. It's a collection of essentially conversations, lectures, something like, given by a late 19th century New York political figure named George Washington Plunkett, who describes his view of politics and what it means to get along in a fallen world, let's say, because Tammany Hall, of course, was the political organization that helped run New York for almost 75 years. And it is in this book that he lays out the difference between honest and dishonest graft. It is conversational to the extreme. It is funny, probably without him meaning to be funny, but as a portrait of the, okay, no crap. If you sort of want to understand the ultimate world from which Trump emerges, the ultimate primordial ooze from which Trump emerges, it is the culture of Tammany Hall that is represented by George Washington Plunkett, which is the, okay, enough with the high and mighty and noble. This is the way the world really works. And it is kind of the way the world really works. And it's, aside from being one of the most enjoyable books you will ever read, it's one of the shortest books that you will ever read.
I think you can get it online free too. I think it's like in the
Project Gutenberg or whatever.
Yeah, and one of the Internet sites has it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like 25, 30,000 words or something like that. But it is, if you are going into, in order to counteract both the highest political philosophy that you might read and then the most nonsense theory that they might impose on you in political science or political philosophy or whatever theory class that you might take, this grounding in the muck and mire of the actual way that politics, that the sausage is made, is just sort of like it's a very important salve and tonic, I would say. Okay, so that gives us, what do we have there? We got The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. We have History of the World by J.M. Roberts. We have The Captive Mind by Czesław Miłosz. And I forget which Clive James. Cultural Amnesia.
How appropriate that you forgot.
Yeah, I forgot Cultural Amnesia.
You're suffering from the very malady James laments in this wonderful book.
There we go. Absolutely. Okay, so since we've only done 15 minutes of this, then we thought maybe we would go on to go, and this is something people also do in dorm rooms in order to get to know each other in their freshman years, but also whatever, and that is board games or games, favorite board games. So I've just, I've a 15-year-old at home, I have an 18-year-old and 21-year-old, and we do play a lot of games, and I don't like games. So I'm not going to, I really don't like playing games. I like playing poker, but
I hate games, but I'll start.
Okay, you start then.
Yeah, I'm glad. I feel freed up because you said that.
Yeah.
I don't like board games, but I will play them under duress, and
Yes.
I won't be very pleasant because I'll be bored, then triumphal as I start to do well, and then almost completely absent the second that I'm losing ground.
Do you have a favorite one to play under duress?
Scrabble. And people will say, "Oh, well, you must be good at Scrabble." I'm not good at Scrabble. I'm not. Whatever my facility with language and words is, it doesn't translate into the particular skills required to play Scrabble well. But I will play it. I think I have it because I will play it. But it doesn't come up a lot in my life. But yeah, Scrabble.
Okay, can I jump in because I have twins and one loves any board game, and I spent a lot of the last 19 years playing various board games, and I'm ambivalent about them, but I do like Scrabble. But I think the only way Scrabble works is that each family has to hack it in its own way. So we had to devise all kinds of rules because one kid took way too long to find a word. The other would just add an S to someone else's awesome word. And we're like, that's not fair. So we created our own little family rule book for Scrabble, which made it kind of go along at a quicker pace because some of the agony, especially when you're playing, like civilizational based board games with young boys, is that like that's your whole afternoon. That's gonna be it for you. It's like building the big Legos, which I find more fun than the board games. But Scrabble is great if you hack it, and I'm a huge fan of that. But the game actually, as they got older, that everybody loved, and we did this during COVID with a nearby family. We were in the same bubble. Is that we learned all the different strategies and ways to play poker. And that took many, many months, and we would meet every week, and we played for pennies, and it was really great for the kids to learn because there were two teenagers and one younger kid to learn how to bet, to learn how to bluff. All that stuff these are great, important human life lessons, and so I'm more of a fan of poker than board games, but I do like Scrabble. So
can I just say that one of the great pleasures of Scrabble as a parent is losing. Maybe people don't feel this way, but is like losing to your kid as your kid gets older and gets better and better, and their vocabulary enlarges, and they start seeing patterns in words and things like that. Boggle has much the same effect. If you've ever played Boggle, which is like a word jumble version of the jumble that used to be in the newspaper, and like at least one of my kids played game, and I like go through 3 minutes, you have a timer, and you go through this, and I'm very proud because I get like 22 words, and then it's over, and like my daughter will say, "Can I go first?" And I'll be yes, and then she'll have like 80 words. I don't know, like she's got 22 letter words. I mean, it's unbelievable how, and so I just swell with pride at being humiliated by my kid at Boggle. Anyway, so Seth, you with 6 children.
Yes. So that's actually, I'm going to do 2 real quick. I have similar thinking along the lines of the first one is chess. And, my kids aren't old enough to beat me yet, but I played with my nephew all through his child. Spent a lot of time with my sister's family, especially when the two oldest were young, and so I played chess with him. And the first time he beat me was one of the happiest moments of my life. I was like texting my sister, and we were taking pictures, and it was like, because it's like I mean, I taught him how to beat me, but it's kind of like, if your kid beats you at one-on-one in basketball or something, it's like there's a stage of development they have reached where they have, but chess is something that just, it will stick with you. The skills you learn will stick with you for life. That's sort of an obvious one. For children, the game that I have actually, the game that I actually like my kids playing is called the Magic Labyrinth. And this is for parents out there. The way you play the game is somebody sets up a sort of maze. It's magnetized, and somebody sets up the walls of a maze in order to put a specific prize or whatever, somewhere on some square. The catch is the maze is underneath the board. And your player, has a magnetized bottom and a marble underneath him. And when you run into a wall, the marble drops and you have to go back to the start. So the wall, the maze, is invisible. It teaches you to make an invisible maze, and you have to remember each time you run into a wall and go back to the beginning, you have to try to remember the pathway that you've used to get different things.
And this is different than Labyrinth.
Yes.
Is the game that
that
we played as kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, which is awesome
Your game
too. I mean,
is the
awesome.
Magic Labyrinth.
Yeah.
The magic
where the
right.
maze.
It's
is
not the
invisible.
marble, although Labyrinth is amazing and great, and
yeah.
obviously.
I
But
just
yeah, it's called
clarified that.
the Magic Labyrinth, right? Is where somebody has to build. Somebody who's not playing has to build an invisible wall, and then the players have to learn the contours of the wall.
That sounds like hell on earth to me. That is the most horrifying thing. That's like if you wanted if you wanted me to give up the nuclear code, you would make me play that game. That is my idea of the worst thing I've ever heard. So, but I'm sure my kids would.
Then there's of course the game from Parks and Recreation, the Cones of Dunshire. You remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very common. But so my choice, as a young man, I needed ways to express my Napoleonic tendencies. And so I found them released in what I believe to be the best board game of all time, and that is Axis and Allies. And so Axis and Allies, of course, you can up to 5 players, either 3 allies, major allied powers, and then the 2 major Axis powers. And you run World War II, and you get to be in the cockpit on either side. But of course, one of the best parts of Axis and Allies are the game pieces, because, as a 13-year-old boy, you like having your own submarine fleet and aircraft carrier fleet where you can position the fighters, and then you have your bombers. And so there were many, many hours spent with my good friends playing Axis and Allies as a teenager. And so I recommend that to anyone who wants to conquer the world.
I mean, I guess I have to go with the most popular board game of all time, which is Monopoly.
Yeah.
And it can be, depending on the age that you play, and Monopoly has also many hacks, right? There are many, many ways you can play Monopoly if you don't want to have a 3.5-hour game. Which is
I have a friend who wouldn't allow anyone to go to jail. She's very liberal. She's like, no jail, no jail, like no carceral state in Monopoly.
But, the story of Monopoly is fascinating. It was designed to be a sort of a primer for socialism, and then of course because people want to win things and not cooperate. They taught people how to be savage and how to bankrupt other people and get their property for as little as they possibly could and maximize their own strength and power and all of that. But it's such a brilliantly designed conceit, Monopoly, that almost 100 years later, I think it is still among the most popular, if not the most popular board game, and that thing as it begins to decline, where you see someone just getting slowly squeezed and broken as things turn against them.
You add a hotel to Boardwalk and Park Lane.
Exactly.
Rents get high.
Yeah. Anyway, it's I mean,
By the way, on Monopoly,
Yeah.
there's a I was just reading this fascinating review of a book, Monopoly X, in the Wall Street Journal. There is a history of how Monopoly was used by the Allies to escape prison camps in the Second World War. A wealthy Londoner made versions of the games because board games were being sent to prisoners. You could bring, the Red Cross could bring board games for people to play in prison camps or whatever. They made certain versions of Monopoly that had tiny compasses the size of a Monopoly piece and maps where there were some other stuff, and they were marked in a very secret way. And this was part of so Monopoly actually helped save the world.
There you go. And of course, the main issue is, did you or did you not get the car? Because, if you started out the game with the car, you almost didn't even have to win because you had the car as opposed to the
I
hat.
like the
or
top
shoe.
hat is my
You
favorite
like
charm.
That, but nobody wanted the shoe.
No one wants the shoe. I agree.
Nobody wanted the shoe. But I am going to conclude by saying that of all games that are in existence, aside from Seth and chess, my son is a very good chess player. I am really not a chess player at all, but that the intellectual engagement that people have with chess is kind of a remarkable thing, and can, of course, go way too far. That there's a great family story that my dear family friend Hugh Weldon told of a friend of his who had a son who was clearly a genius, like 3 years old. The kid had started to learn Greek and Latin and stuff like that, and the parents were like, what do we do with this kid? How are we going to keep him engaged? And something spectacular and strange and difficult is going on here. And the one thing that they all agreed on was that under no circumstances should this child be allowed anywhere near a chessboard, because it would swallow him up and trap him forever.
Bobby Fischer.
Bobby Fischer. But I mean, that it has a particular connection to a certain type of intellect, of certain type of brain that it can capture and that you can never escape from. So there's that is both the positive of the, I guess it's not the oldest game. I guess Parcheesi is the world's, which is,
you see, Westerners play chess, John, but in China they play Go. Go, I think, is older, and as Henry Kissinger would always point out, that shows the different mentalities, and why the Chinese are well positioned to beat us in this competition, because you have to understand the mysteries of Go, unlike this chess game that we play, which originated in India, I think.
Yeah, I do think the amazing thing about chess is that because of this long history, and this was Bobby Fischer's great strength, that every chess game, every major chess game for the last 250 years has been recorded. There is and so if you do have like an eidetic memory and a certain type of brain, you can literally know every chess game that has ever been played and play it in response to whatever move is being made by your opposite number. And so there are certain people who can never lose, right? There's that great player now who is so bored by chess, who's the greatest player I can't remember his name.
Magnus
Carlsen.
He got beat,
right.
though. He just got beat.
But he stopped playing physical chess. Like, he started playing in his head or playing people who would just call moves out or something like that.
Remember how the great Sharansky passed the time in prison.
That's right, playing chess
against himself.
That's right.
And one of the popular things you see at hotels and other type of gathering is that they bring in a master to play a simul, and everybody can play the master, and he has to play all 20 games simultaneously, where he goes board by board and makes a move. Things that there are sort of, chess is funny because we keep inventing ways to try to corral the crazy genius that John is talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now play 20 people simultaneously. Now play blindfolded. Now play with a clock. Now play with a shorter clock. And because of what chess is, if you have a certain type of brain, you can be unstoppable.
Yeah, it is an amazing thing. And by the way, just to conclude on this point, because my son became a chess player, we went back and watched the 1995-1996 movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, which is based on his name, Alex Waitskin's book about his son Josh, who became a grandmaster at the age of 7 or 8, and had these sort of two teachers, one of whom was like a classic chess teacher, who, and then the other was a junkie who lived in Washington Square Park, who lived and played speed chess to hustle people for money, and who was actually a better teacher than the great teacher Lawrence Fishburne plays the junkie in the movie. Ben Kingsley plays the teacher in the movie. Joe Mantegna plays the father. It is great. I think it's on Tubi, so I think you can watch it for free. But it is a beautiful, interesting movie about like what it's like to raise to have to raise a kid who like has gifts that you can't even begin to imagine. And there is this moment in it when there's a teacher, they played with a very young Laura Linney, who says, "We're worried that Josh isn't, making enough friends, or he's not this," in the same kind of way that my friend Hugh said that the parents were worried about what to do with this genius kid. And Mantegna says to her, "I don't know what you want from me. This kid does something better than I have ever done anything in my entire life. And he does something better than you will ever be able to do in your entire life. Am I supposed to stop him? Am I supposed to prevent him from exercising this genius?" And it's a pretty great scene in a pretty great movie. Okay, so we got.
By the way, my favorite personal ish story like that is my friend. We grew up playing chess, and my friend is better than I ever was. Always very, very good. He was the head of captain of his chess team, in public school, all that stuff. Just brilliant guy, ranked and all that stuff. He would go to Washington Square Park and play chess, which is like the chess place, obviously. And one day he sits down.
All these tables. They have these public tables that are chessboards, like on concrete, on concrete.
Yeah.
And then there are these hustlers who play chess for money.
Yeah. So he sits down one day, and sitting across from him is the person who that day has been beating everybody. It is a person dressed as an AMP energy drink can. It is a mascot of a Pepsi energy drink. And they were filming an ad for the energy drink, and they hired a real ringer to wear the costume of a giant energy drink can. And my friend sat down, and I saw my friend on YouTube in what ended up being a commercial because he went to play chess, normally. But that's how the sort of characterish nature of chess, attracts. You may sit down one day and you may lose badly to a very smart can of AMP energy drink.
Okay, so we got chess, we got Scrabble, we've got poker, we've got Monopoly, we've got Axes and Allies, got Boggle. I am going to throw in one disrecommendation if you can avoid it, if you can do whatever you can to avoid it. If you have young kids and they may play this at somebody else's house, do not bring it into your house. You will be so sorry. Is Settlers of Catan.
Oh, yes. And oh my God, I've played hours of my life playing Settlers of Catan.
Do not. This is a resource game. It's about how you deal with resources on an island. It is excruciating. It is boring. It is some form of politicized that I don't quite. It's about
German.
sustainability,
Yeah.
German. That's all you need to know.
and it's just
All the
My
best
son's
games are
favorite
German.
game for 3 years.
Agony.
That's all I'm saying. Never getting
agony.
that. Never
So
getting that back.
my most profound advice to you is go to Amazon and then tell your kid that it's out of stock, and maybe you can get away with never having to have Catan in your house, because if you have it, you're going to play it and you are going to be so sorry. Okay, so that is our show. We've done books, we've done games. We'll be back with other fun and morosity another time. So for Seth, Matt, Christine, and Abe, I'm John Podhoretz. Keep the candle burning.